Now reconvene the regular council meeting for Monday, November 3rd, 2025. Before we get underway, we'd like to acknowledge that this council meeting has been held on the homeland of the Tanaka people. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the regular council meeting of Monday, October 20th, 2025? Mover, please, Councillor Ray, Councillor Peabody. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the following minutes of council? Minutes of the special council meeting of Wednesday, October 15th, 2025. Minutes of the public hearing of Monday, October 20th, 2025. Minutes of the regular council meeting of Monday, October 20th, 2025. Minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. Minutes of the special council meeting of Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. And minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of Monday, October 27th, 2025. Mover, please, Councillor Graham. Councillor Popoff. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Next up is a presentation from our Managing Director of Canadian Rockies International Airport, Tristan, is here to give us the presentation. The floor is yours, Tristan. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's terrific to be here. And I know we've all sat through these before, so I'm going to open today a little bit differently. We changed the format of the executive summary to be less focused on the summary of the details of the plan so that we're not repeating ourselves there, and just to take a bit more of a broad perspective, a higher level look. So we're calling it the past, present, and future. You all have the hard copy of the plan in front of you, and I do realize that for those that don't have it, it'll be difficult to see on the screen. This is more like a script for me on these pages, but I will cover everything that's included here. It was interesting sitting down to create this the business plan for this year and doing a little reflection and being shocked to realize that entering into next month, what'll be 17 years since I arrived here at YXC. And so we started doing a little looking at where we came from, which always is helpful when we're trying to figure out the best trajectory forward. At that time, the airport served 86,000 passengers, operated commercial flights about 14 hours of the day, and parking lot could accommodate about 160 vehicles. Today, we have scheduled commercial service from 3 carriers operating over 20 hours a day, serving nearly 180,000 passengers, have tripled the size of the parking lot. And over this period, the airport has completed more than $26 million in infrastructure and operating upgrades to the runway, aprons, airfield lighting, electrical systems, parking. That's just a few of the highlights. Upgrades I'm very happy to review and look at were timed in step with the needs-based local realities and industry trends. And as responsible stewards, the capital investments have been implemented very strategically to maximize the life cycle of existing infrastructure and equipment investment. Elevate Airport's skilled and dedicated team has operated under 4 different mayor and councils, 4 different CAOs, and managed through the most impactful industry shutdown in history, all while remaining financially self-sustaining, safe, and profitable throughout, always meeting our mandate without ever drawing on any municipal tax dollars. This past year, we introduced 2 new programs at YXC, first becoming members of the Not in My City program, which you might see across airports throughout the country. This is an initiative that we're part of and that we started, I guess, 4 or 5 months ago to combat human trafficking. And we've also implemented the Therapeutic Paws of Canada program in the airport, thanks to Dion, who became a handler herself in this program. So the airport on a regular basis has therapy dogs with their handlers, helping alleviate the anxiety and stress of some passengers that don't travel so often. As we continue to expand with an eye on the future, it's important that we do so equipped with the best information and projections available, anticipating the changes on the air service horizon while positioning ourselves to drive change and benefit from new technologies and industry shifts that are currently occurring. In 2025, YXC completed and submitted Scope 2 of the ACI, so that's Airports Council International, World ACERT program, which is the airport carbon emission and reporting tool. which is the most globally accepted, accredited carbon measuring tool in our industry, on our journey toward a carbon neutral 2030, for which YXC has received the 2025 BC Aviation Council's Environmental Award. Within the next 10 years, we expect to see 35 to 50 seat hybrid, electric, and possibly hydrogen electric aircraft moving into our airline partner fleets. These next-gen aircraft will ideally fit with our hub and spoke airport model, while smaller, what they call eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, could provide new community-to-community connections throughout the Kootenay, which have several benefits as they're very small passenger, low-cost connecting operations. The terminal building has reached capacity, and many of you that have traveled recently will have experienced the pinch point during our peak hour. And our future energy needs are also becoming evident, and we're short there to meet the changes. Continuing our practice of reacting in real time to need, we're embarking on an exciting phase of building upgrades, infrastructure visioning, and property master planning for continued air service growth and business attraction. It looks to me, though, we've stretched the existing life of the terminal sort of to its maximum in the current environment and the way the airlines are operating. And so, yeah, it's really an exciting time to be rolling out what you'll see in our master plan is quite a bit over the next couple of years of infrastructure changes. I'm going to pass it over to Gemma, who's just going to sort of kick off the financial piece of our business plan.
Okay, so next slide. All right, so the business plan overview, these are the main assumptions that we based our forecast on for 2026. As in the past, we've used the TD Bank data as a reliable reference for CPI and GDP. So TD Bank has budgeted CPI to be 2.1% for 2026, and that is expected to decrease slightly to 2% in 2027 and onwards. GDP was budgeted to be 1.1 in 2026 and increasing to an average of 2% in the next several years. Moving on to passenger average annual growth. So in recent years, we've used a few different models for estimating the passenger future growth. Previously, we were using a pre-pandemic recovery model. Last year, we used a model based on estimated aircraft capacity. And now for 2026, we're using a model based on a conservative percent increase. And our percent increase we're using as a 3% increase over 2025 numbers. Air Canada and WestJet Encore, they're both flying in and out of YXC using a Q400 aircraft, which seats approximately 76 passengers each. And with the newly added Pacific Coastal Airlines flying daily, this will add an additional 19 passengers per flight. So we are assuming that the routing schedule provided to us for 2026 will be consistent throughout the year, and we've used that as our budgeting forecast. Moving on to revenue drivers. The rates and charges are reviewed annually. These are fair and competitive with lower costs to airline partners and airport users. And you might remember in 2024, early 2024, we increased the parking rate by $2 to $10 per day. This is a similar rate to other airport parking areas. Next, we have the AIF, which is the Airport Improvement Fee. This will continue to be $3 per enplaning passenger, and no changes are expected in 2026. Our aircraft landing fees, we're not budgeting for forestry landing fees or fire suppression landing fees, sorry. The next one is the terminal fees per passenger fee. These were increased to $9 per passenger in 2020, and we're not expecting any changes in 2026. Lease and rent revenue. We've performed a rate review in late 2023 for the reason that it had been over a decade since our last rate review. Based on this, we increased our lease rates in late 2024 for the air terminal building in Bearland by 20% over a 5-year period. We bumped it up 10% in the first year with 2.5% in each of the subsequent 4 years. Concession revenue, currently we have a food beverage operator. This is, at this point in time, vending machines only for drinks and snacks. We have aircraft fuel concession, ATM, massage chairs, and parking concessions. Car rental concessions, we have 2 agencies at the airport. We have Enterprise National and Budget. Both of these car rental agencies entered into new agreements in the fall of 2022. And our cost recoveries, these are costs that are recovered from tenants at YXC, vehicle fuel, garbage service, utilities, and equipment. And our expense drivers, our major costs at YXC are utilities, insurance, fuel, and marketing. We expect an increase in these expense items due to expected increases in cost of services. And as for the marketing expenditures, the majority of dollars are spent in partnership with Cranbrook Tourism and Kootenay Rockies Tourism. And by participating in this arrangement, YXC meets the criteria for the Destination BC Community Partnership Program, where they match our dollars spent. Okay, so on to our next slide. We have 2026 budget highlights. There are a few things to note here. First of all, our passenger numbers. We are budgeting 164,800 passengers for 2026, which is about 3% higher than 2025 forecasted actuals. We believe that there is opportunity for continued growth, provided our airline partners are able to continue to meet the increased needs of the East Kootenay residents and visitors. Revenues, these have been budgeted to be about 2.9 million. This is an approximate 3% increase over 2025 forecasted actuals. Of that 2.9 million, aeronautical revenues, which include passenger fees, are budgeted to be 1.6 million, or approximately 54% of total revenue, and the remaining 46% of revenue can be attributed largely to parking revenues, car rental concession, and space rental. The next item up there are expenditures. We have budgeted these to be just under $2 million for 2026. This is a 5% increase over 2025 forecasted actuals. Again, we have budgeted this to be higher just due to the increasing cost of goods and services, impacts of inflation, state of the current economy, both nationally and internationally. And the fourth item on that slide there is EBITDA, budgeted to be about 970,000 for 2026. And the last one there is the capital spending. We have 14 projects budgeted for 2026, and those 14 projects tally 5.4 million. Of those dollars earmarked, we are expecting AIF funding of about 3.2 million and ACAP funding of 500,000. Okay, next slide. And there's a few graphs there, just kind of showing the progression over the years. And if we move on to the next slide, 2026 capital plan summary, and one more. All right, so this is our capital plan summary for 2026. It's really hard to see there, but we will look at those 3 highlighted items there. Oh, thank you. So our first item I will speak to, it is the repaving of the main car, repaving the main car parking lot and the airside service road. This project we're expecting to be about $900,000. The parking lot was last paved in 1990 and is now reaching the end of its useful life. So it's critical to get this work done. And we're hoping that a part of this cost could be recoverable through AIF. The next line item there is a full replacement rehabilitation of the airport water sewer system of an estimated $2 million. A condition assessment was commenced in 2024, and we are currently awaiting the final report just to see where we need to go with that project. Hopefully, we'll get the data in the next few months or so here. And we are expecting to incorporate a combination of borrowing and AIF funding to support this project. And the last item there, Tristan will address. Thank you.
Yes, so Jim has touched on a few of the bigger ticket items there on our capital plan, but there are several. I'm sure that we could just don't want to eat all of our time on this, but there's lots of interesting projects. I will just, before I talk about the terminal expansion, on the water system, that budgeted amount, of course, is based on worst case scenario because we don't have the full report delivered to us yet. But we're expecting it could end up being significantly less depending on what the condition report final details look like. And as far as the air terminal building, this last one I thought I would speak up to because I know a little bit of the most recent details on it. This has been something that we've been working for throughout the year, and there's a photo in your handouts and up on the screen there of a couple of the examples of preliminary design work that's been done to create the cost estimates. We did Class D costing estimates in order to complete grant applications, and this project got held back a little bit because the initial intake of the primary grant that we were looking at to help us with this, which was the BC Airports Capital Assistance Program grant. The grant didn't reach its full spend through the provincial government. There were about 6.5 of the 8 million allocated were provided to airports, but we just today received notice that they reopened, so we're resubmitting, and we've learned a lot in that interim period of things to modify on our submission, and we noticed the language in the grant application itself has changed in a way that looks like it has done so to better suit our project. So that was positive to see. And the hold room right now, as beautiful as that space is, in the very short term, you're going to see it change a bit because even prior to commencing on some of the structural changes of this project, we're going to be incorporating additional seating in the existing space. And the first phase will be increasing the washroom capacity. Again, this is, of course, customer service side of things, pretty critical, especially when some of the flights are so short to Calgary. You can't really use a washroom realistically on the plane anyway because the seat belt's on pretty much the whole time. So I really want to get this done. The difficulty is coordinating the construction project while keeping at least one washroom open and available to passengers all the time does have a cost impact. So we're looking at different phases of the design and how to do that work. You can see there's option 3 and option 5, which are illustrated here, and we'll have other options too. These are just really two of the better examples that we've seen. And both are designed in such a way that we increase seating capacity, even in the existing space, double the washroom capacity, and do so in such a way that we can expand, if looking at this picture, what would be to the west, essentially, to the left side of the page if you're looking at it, that maple wall that is currently beside the arrivals door, we're going to have a large opening with a swing gate, sort of like we do to the existing expanded area of the hold room, where it can be both an arrivals corridor and a departures room. And so I feel this is the best way to utilize the existing footprint of the building, but to gain what should be 50 or 60 more seats. And our goal is to have 225 seats in the hold room, which would accommodate 3 totally full Q400s at the same time.
Councillor Graham has a question for you.
Are we doing questions now or at the end? Do you want to go at the end or whatever you prefer?
Let's do both. If you got a question now, let's have it now. Then we can do it.
I just had 2 questions just around this, which I think is important, and it's good that you're moving on it. Just around the funding of it. One question is, do we not have a building reserve that we would be able to get this done, whether we get a grant or not? And then second question is, I know that in chatting with the chair of the regional district, it sounds like they're ready to stroke a check to the airport. They just need to be asked. So hopefully they really want to partner up on seating and expansion. So are we looking at that as well?
Mayor Price, through to Councillor Graham, great. Thank you for your comments and questions. And I can answer pretty concise on this. Yes, whether the grant is approved or not, we're going forward. The grant is the optimal way so that we can also have allocated funds for a lot of the other work that we're doing to enhance the airport and move with the times in an aggressive way, to which we'll talk about more a little bit later. But even without the grant, we now have allocated the funds in such a way that without it, we will still go ahead with the full scope of this upgrade. As far as other granting options, yes, absolutely. The regional district has been great and has the details of our costing and has expressed their interest in partnering on this. We're expecting good things there. And we're always keeping our eye on other grant partnership opportunities as well. But happy to say that even without all of those, the way that we put this budget together is assuming no grant. Yeah. Okay. And again, so the footprint expansion to the through the maple wall would allow for sort of 1/3, again, the size of the existing hold room. And that would be a departures gate during our peak volumes, and planes arriving at the time would arrive in the what used to be, the far north door that's very underutilized. And at other times, if the airlines do change their schedule so that we don't have that peak of 80% of the day's traffic or more during one short period of time, then that will again become predominantly an arrivals area, but allows us that flexibility. And the cost wouldn't be that high of that phase because it's essentially not impacting anything structurally. Looking ahead at our 5-year capital plan, so 27 to 2031, we're looking at, I think, lots of projects. I just wanted to sort of touch on 13 of them and not spend time going over all of them, just some of the bigger ticket items year over year. In 2027, the most critical piece is actually an equipment piece of equipment that we are going to be replacing, which is the primary truck that tows the runway sweeper. We're going to be in 2028. The most interesting part for us is hopefully, by 2028, we'll have a much clearer picture of what's going to be required for the support of electrification of the airfield and next-gen aircraft that will be coming online a year or two later. And we want to be ahead of that strategically. So that'll be a significant amount of work, but to have a really accurate price on this is really hard right now because we're still learning so much from the trials that are happening with the charging of these aircraft, and they're very much in prototype phases right now. So we've put a pretty big number in there, but it could end up contracting as we learn more. 2029, we're going to be expanding the parking lot once again. You can see that the existing paved area is almost at capacity now. Our overflow area is a very usable and good overflow area for most of the year, but winter conditions can make that more difficult. So we want to start expanding the paved and lit, so that the number is a bit high there when you think of just paving, but it's because we have to get electrical infrastructure and lamp standards and such there as well. The airport terminal building renovations will expand into the pre-secure area as well. So those washrooms, it's not a capacity issue, but it's an age and reaching end of life for some of the features. And just trying to keep up with best quality possible in the common area. The security screening point, we expect that the capacity of the existing screening room could be twice what it is right now without a structural change to that space. But even if we get a second X-ray machine put in there, this is all determined by CATSA, not by us locally. So we can do all of the advocating that we wish, but at the end of the day, this is a federal decision. But when that goes in there, we'll then get a sense. I'm anticipating that there'll be some structural changes over time that the staff in there will need to work more efficiently. And so we're budgeting for that eventuality. I do have the regional director for CATSA on site in about a week at the airport during our peak times. And some good news on this front, they have agreed through my writing of letters and meetings and pushing that they are going to have CATSA staff opening the screening point half an hour earlier than they currently do ahead of all flights. So at least those people that arrive really early get screened and don't add to the amount of people waiting in line, but it still is a pinch point for us. The issue around the CATSA screening point is, so the way it works, there's TWS and TWH categorized airports from CATSA. And we're TWS. Usually an airport doesn't get TWH, which gets us our second X-ray machine and all that stuff until you maybe get closer to 800,000 passengers. But because of the way that ours are all at the same time, I'm still trying to see if there is some wiggle room in in that area, so we're trying. 2029, we're going to have approach lighting and cabling systems. So this is large airfield work, expanding the replacement of a airfield lighting system on the approach side, not on the runway and taxiway side, as we already did that. But so that's a big project. We're expecting by this point, we'll know what the needs are of higher frequency, lower size aircraft, which might mean a lot more aircraft on the ground at the same time. So we're anticipating an expansion of the apron. And again, we have hold room restaurant project where this is a big unknown. I just want to have this sort of itemized as something that we're always keeping there as a possibility, depending on, first we have to get a sustainable restaurant on the pre-security side, but I really like the way that that works in several airports like Comox, for example, where you have the same operator. Once everybody's in the screening room, they close the common restaurant and staffed by the same person and offer something in the secure area as well. We have a vision of how that could happen in the future, but again, first we have to get to a sustaining restaurant in the general area, which we've not managed to really do yet. Yeah, future taxiway work, but that stuff's getting way off there, so we don't need to really talk too much about 2031. Life will be different by then, I'm sure. Our structure remains the same, and our staff, I'm happy to say, are all remaining the same. So there are, as you can see on the chart up here, myself, Jamie as the operations manager, Gemma, financial manager, Dion, helping all of us out, and we have all returning airport technicians, and we are also looking at probably by next year training another airside airport technician. I'm just going to flip through in the light of time a few of these. My comments around the succession plan really are quite unchanged from last year. This has just been, again, an evolution, and more and more it's being optimized, that Jamie's acting as the airport manager in my absence very, very astutely and making great decisions when he needs to. And I would actually add that Gemma has been taking on a more expanded leadership role too. So thank you, Gemma, for that. Our vision and mission remain the same. Again, the vision of Elevate Airports is to focus on 3 pillars of impact: economic, social, and environmental. Our scorecard is based on the positive difference we make for our customers and the broader population of our region. And we will be leading contributors to the economic growth and diversification of the Kootenay. There's a lot here within our goals and our operating principles. I'm only going to touch on a few. Some of the highlight goals for us this year are to continue the development of the commercially zoned airport lands. We're going to continue to decrease our environmental footprint where possible and be early adopters and innovators of some greenhouse gas reducing initiatives. We are part of the British Columbia Airports Collective that have all agreed to try to be net zero by 2030. We've said in winter climate airports like ours, more likely 2035, but we're being as ambitious as we can be in our aspirational goals here. Again, we've completed Scope 2 of the ACERT program, which gives us a strong baseline. The next phase of Scope 3 is starting to try to influence our tenants and other users at the airport to do more data collection that we can then utilize, and then we start to strategically make movement together to reduce those numbers. The last point I'm going to touch on in our goals is enhancing the value of the airport to the city of Cranbrook and the entire East Kootenay region and its collaborators. And all the things we're going to talk about are going to tie together to do that. Some of our strengths, again, I'm just going to touch on a few. We still are showing lowest airfares in history when tickets are purchased early. While NAV Canada flight stations have been reduced or eliminated, huge reductions at 28 airports across Canada, we've managed to retain full service 24 hours a day from our flight service station. And we have a strong and growing local tourism product. Master planning is continuing and to a very complete master planning picture in 2026. And we offer one of the lowest costs to operate for airline partners across the country. A few of the weaknesses I wanted to highlight is the weakened national air travel ecosystem. So this is looking at airlines, security screening points, CBSA. These are all areas where airlines are, or airports are struggling with the capacity to have the needs that passengers are asking for. Some of this we have more influence on than others, of course. We have no transborder service or direct to the US. We still have this as a weakness in today's political climate, not as big of a concern probably because it's not as in demand as it might be at other times, but we still see, of course, a future where that's going to come back. Another weakness, of course, so you heard about our water assessment that was completed in 2024, and we're still waiting for the consultant to get some of the final pieces of that together. So we have a water and sewer assessment that we can look at together. The national air industry policies neglecting smaller regional airports is one that we have a great success story, but airports across the country, you'll hear from many, are really, really suffering to get their pre-pandemic seat capacity back, especially in the Atlantic provinces, but in BC as well. Some airports are still in our province only at about 60% of pre-pandemic airline capacity, which had to do with the rationalization of the WestJet and Air Canada services. So we have got our capacity back, but of course it's not at the ideal frequency. Another weakness is CATSA delaying staffing and infrastructure improvements. We talked about that already with the TWA, S, and H. And some airport businesses have difficulty attracting and retaining employees, i.e. the failure of a restaurant, for example, to be able to sustain and survive at the airport has to do with staffing retention. And opportunities, threats, and challenges. I'm taking longer than I wanted to, so I'm just highlighting a few. Of course, some of the key opportunities are to be electric and hybrid aircraft ready, so that when those come to market, we're one of the first viable locations, which will give us one step ahead on getting additional frequency and service. We want to nurture what are already strong relationships with the existing carriers and influence service enhancements so that we're not bottlenecking the way we are right now. And we want to realize partnership initiatives with the St. Mary's Band NACM on the development of the aviation industrial park at the airport. And again, as Councillor Graham spoke to, we want to develop relationships with new grant funding partnerships and organizations as well, not only BC, the British Columbia airports and the national ACAP program, but the RDEK showing real interest now as well. There are several threats and challenges there, but those are quite similar to other years. Of course, as we shift seasons, one that's always relevant right now is the impact of unprecedented climate events, so prolonged icing, fog, some of the things that we historically don't see as much, but the last couple winters have, as well as wildfire situations in the summer. But I'm going to skip over those. 5 key strategic objectives. Maximize load factors, maximize diversity of the revenue opportunities, which include the industrial development, enhance customer service satisfaction, safety, execute our enterprise risk management, and ensure planned growth aligns with the air carrier needs. These shake down into quite a lot of detail that, of course, we don't have time to go over one by one, but those goals those objectives roll out to several goals, actions, and target measures. I'm not going to go through all of them right now, but some of the highlights are the improved security screening time, because that's a real pinch point right now. So that's being resolved as we speak with the opening earlier and having CATSA on site next week. The increase in the bathroom capacity in the holding area, these are all on the enhanced customer service side of things, increased seating capacity and enhanced community safety and comfort, and that has to do with the Not in My City and the Therapeutic Pause Canada programs. Scrolling forward, when we're looking at the strategic objectives of the enterprise risk management plan, we're going to talk about that in a sec, but I'll just say, historically, managing this piece has been key to maintaining our profitability so that we stay as a service without any tax burden. And the last couple years, many things itemized as the upside opportunities and downside risks did come to pass, and they did fall out exactly as we had planned. So I have a lot of confidence in the enterprise risk management plan, which we'll speak to in a moment. As far as the marketing plan, we're going to continue with a leadership role in Cranbrook Tourism and the committees of Kootenay Rockies Tourism. I still maintain strong relationships with Destination BC from my time on the board at TIA BC, and will continue with my new role with the Canadian Policy and Small Airports Caucus with the ACI, and all these things will come together to give us a lot more vision into what's happening in the industry and leverage things early. Late October, we saw, of course, just last week, the launch of the new Pacific Coastal Service to Kelowna, which is optimized for connectivity through to Vancouver Island, through Victoria, Nanaimo, and Comox. And so we're going to have a lot of enhanced, in the short term, tourism initiatives around that, including some contesting that you'll see rolling out in the near future, which is a collaboration between Cranbrook Tourism, Tourism Kelowna, as well as both airports and the airline. Again, on the air service development side, I'm only going to speak to one of all the points of what we're doing, which is we're staying present in many markets, but some of the markets where we see the biggest opportunity, the low-hanging fruit with the lowest investment, is take advantage of the notoriety that our region has been gaining over the last 4 years in the Vancouver market. It's still really hard in Toronto and East, but there has been more movement from the lower mainland, and we want to utilize this service to Kelowna to really start to open up product opportunities of what was historically an Okanagan experience that may be getting overcrowded, to leverage that to become more of a Kootenay experience from those visitors. And the last sort of components here are enterprise risk management. We break that down, of course, into financial risks, operational risks, and strategic risks. And I'm going to skip past these overview ones and just talk a little bit of how that all comes down. When we look at the risk impact, and the mitigation plans for all of these, it ends up rolling out into a profit assurance plan. And everyone here is familiar with the way that we work our profit assurance plan. We look at a weighted probability. And so this year, again, like I said, many things reoccur in our environment, and we've seen them come to pass, and this tool has been very effective. Our revenue items that we see on the downside that could be impacted, again, we have what we think are our best estimates on the probability of these coming to pass. So our EBITDA, our total impact, would be if it happens. We weight that against the probability to come up with a weighted probability number. Our total downside risk when it comes to revenue items and expense items is $107,150. Through our profit assurance plan, we look at all of our revenue opportunities, as well as everywhere that we could reduce expenses if we absolutely had to. Although that being said, we do run as lean as we can, and I'm proud to say we're pretty careful with every dime that we allocate to something, but we do have some flexibility. Our total weighted impact of our revenue increases on the upside would be $129,784. And our expense reductions, to also increase that margin, we have about $57,000 of what we can see as things we could do to defer costs, which gives our total downside risk $107,000 and our total upside opportunity $187,000, which puts me in a pretty happy place because we have a $79,000 mortgage towards the upside there. And I know I've taken a lot of time, but I just want to open up to more questions.
Thank you very much, Christian. Very informative. Councillor Teske.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So 17 years of excellent management and service. Thank you for that. A couple of questions. The ongoing issue around trying to keep a restaurant going. Is there anything structurally or otherwise that could happen to change that? Because it's been happening over and over for a long time.
Yes, Mayor Price, through you to Councillor Stetsky. Great question and something we talk about a lot. And I think that we definitely have more than enough passengers, as well as the people dropping off and picking up those passengers, to make a restaurant viable. The difficulty is, I have no doubt in my mind that in a different climate, we probably would have seen Delightful stay. It really wasn't as much of a financial challenge as it was a staffing challenge. And we're seeing this throughout the food and beverage industry, especially in our region. I know we thought there would be a little bit more robust possibility of sustaining this time because they have two other locations between the college, their downtown location, so a pool of staff, but they ended up having to reduce our hours at the college as well. And just to give you, I think it's okay to mention other people's, I mean, I think the entry point for someone just starting out with them, it wasn't a low offering. I think it was $22.50 an hour being offered to someone starting out, and still they could not retain staff. So I think, to answer your question, in the short term, what we're looking at, and I've had emails back and forth with our vending provider who has more robust vending options, but something that always seems like year over year come up because of this is maybe we just need to really enhance the vending option to have like pizza oven vending and some of that more. I'm sure people who travel a lot have seen quite robust vending systems in Japan and other places. We may have to go that route just because, like you said, we're just cycling. If there was an easy answer, I'd like to think that we would have found it already, but we haven't. So I think that spooling up the vending option is probably what we're going to be doing in the near term, at least.
Certainly.
I had to smile about the inaugural flight between Cranbrook and Kelowna because I flew on an inaugural flight between Cranbrook and Kelowna about a dozen years ago. Pacific Coastal was vital to aviation in British Columbia at the time. Do you think there's any other opportunities for them to expand coming out of Cranbrook, perhaps to Vancouver Island or other locations?
Great question. And right now I'm just laser focused on trying to do everything we can to make sure that this is very successful for them. And to answer your question, no, of course, yes, there's always opportunity once someone is operating, especially with an overnighting aircraft, which strategically is very good for us, that aircraft overnights here. There are other market opportunities, but really we just need to put everything towards making sure that this initial flight is sustainable. When that service, as much as it was sought after, was in place before, it was successful, but only just. So we're really, really banking on that connectivity through to Vancouver Island. So we're thinking maybe, it doesn't have to be a lot, but a couple seats a week here and there connecting through and to from the Vancouver Island markets will just help tip it towards from being just sustainable to being quite profitable, at which time, once we've proven that, those conversations will be easier to have with Pacific Coastal.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for another excellent report. Your risk analysis and your financial analysis are so impressive, and it shows obviously in the successful operation for so many years. So thank you so much. When we traveled down to UBCM this year, I was chatting with some of our colleagues from the Elk Valley and I asked them if they flew out of Cranbrook. And there were some folks who were making other choices for their airports. And so I asked them, when was the last time you flew out of Cranbrook? It was like a decade ago or 15 years ago. I'm like, well, you should give us a try. So I know it's a small portion of your marketing, but I would love to see our folks in the Elk Valley, if you have not flown out of Cranbrook recently, give us a try. Drive this way. Don't go to Calgary. They don't need your business. Come our way. We'd love to have your business. So anyways, another sort of interesting opportunity, I think, when there are conferences or large meetings in the area, that's another potential connection point to say to these organizers, hey, maybe just remind your guest speakers and your big folks who are coming in, think about flying in and out of Cranbrook. You don't need to go to Calgary and drive. Let's save you the drive. Just fly into Cranbrook. So
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thank you. Just one other question. When you were talking about the security and going through security and the second scanner, would that be something worth proposing, or would it be just getting one of those really nice, cool, fancy ones? We don't have to take anything out of your bag, because that would save a lot of time as well, and you'd not necessarily need another whole lane. Like, is that something worth proposing and saying, hey, just get us the latest and greatest?
Yeah. Councillor Graham, a great question. And of course, we will be having both those conversations. I am, the latest and greatest are actually just starting to roll out to Kelowna. That would be the next size of airport that will start to see the upgraded technology to allow for that. And they don't have them yet, but they will very soon. I will definitely always be pushing, and that will be a great way. You're absolutely right. My anticipation is that anything below a TWH rated airport for the next few years anyway, probably won't be able to see that technology. But of course, we're going to be a squeaky wheel. I'm actually more looking at, I mean, if you've noticed going through the screen room, it actually is designed for 2 lanes. And we even have a hole into the baggage room for where that second machine right against the wall would go. And I've already been speaking with the manager of the Kelowna airport saying, don't let CATSA take those old machines away. One of those is coming to us. So that's, in a short term, something that I hope we can achieve. But absolutely, that technology would allow one line to be twice as effective. Yes.
Council, anything else? Okay. Thanks very much, Tristan and Gemma. Great report. Looking forward to the changes in the next coming years for sure. Lots of good things happening. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Next up are bylaws. The first bylaw is from our finance department regarding fees and charges bylaw. I'll ask staff to review this report for us, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Amanda is going to join me in presenting this report, as there are impacts to Amanda's operations as well. So this report is seeking Council's approval to give 3 readings, or seeking 3 readings, pardon me, from Council to the fees and charges bylaw. So we have gone through some of the administrative charges here at City Hall, also over at the police detachment, and there are some impacts related to some of the engineering fees as well. So just briefly for here at City Hall, the fees that are going to be increased are tax certificates, NSF charges, credit card convenience fee. That's an update, that's a housekeeping item to have that apply across the corporation's facility, not just at City Hall. Current tax listings, property roll refund fee and tax roll fee, and administrative charges on recoverable work of 20%. So that is somebody wrecks a fire or a street pole, a light pole, pardon me, and we bill that, we recover that. We'll be able to charge a 20% admin fee for staff involved in that recovery. Before I hand it over to Amanda to go through her changes, it is anticipated that the changes will net approximately $15,000 in additional revenue. Amanda?
And
Thank you. The changes to the administrative fees for police services include a fee increase for disclosure from $50 to $65, and that's to more accurately reflect our staff time. Our average disclosure request takes approximately 1 hour. Police information checks, also known as criminal record checks, would be increasing from $50 to $55. And this is through an evaluation of what municipalities of similar size or within our area are charging, and also a reflection of our current staffing costs. Fingerprinting fees would be increasing from $50 to $55. That's excluding the receiver general fee of $25. That would be an addition. The fingerprinting per copy fee has been removed as it's not necessary. printed photocopies and images, this option for printed items has been replaced by a 25-cent per digital item fee plus $10 per CD or USB. Photocopies and printouts of documents. This has been updated to include a $1 per page fee for documents greater than 60 pages. And we've also simplified some of the language in the bylaw and removed some of the descriptions under disclosure, including narrative reports, copies of motor vehicle reports, scale diagrams, police investigation reports, court file disclosure. This would all be included under disclosure.
Thank you. Charlotte?
Just wanted to mention that a couple of the schedules have been removed and will be added to the streets traffic and parking bylaw.
Thank you. Any further? Council? No? Can I get a motion that council give first reading to City of Cranbrook fees and charges bylaw number 4216, 2025? Mover, please. Council Statsky, Councilor Graham. Discussion? Councilor Statsky, Councilor Brissette.
So criminal record checks for nonprofits, volunteers will remain at zero cost.
Mayor Price, through to Councillor Stetsky, that is correct. Any volunteer criminal record check will be free of charge.
Councilor Brissette.
Well, thank you. With regard to, this is directed to CFO Osborne, the credit card convenience fee. So, I mean, my experience in other aspects of life is many places are going completely cashless and want everything on credit cards. And we seem to be going the opposite way to that. If you could comment on that, please.
Thank you, Councillor Blissett, through Mayor Price. For many, many years, we did not accept credit cards. And the reason for that is because the fees associated with credit cards are very high, to the tune of 2-point-something% per on the transaction. So many municipalities, us included, did not accept credit card payments, particularly at City Hall, where it was utility bills, property taxes. Most of them would have accepted it at Parks and Rec, and that we were very similar to other municipalities. So we have moved towards accepting credit cards. Quite a few years ago, we started accepting them, but in the bylaw, we had said that the fee would only be charged at City Hall. Now with the fees and charges update over at Parks and Rec, they're also charging it. And so this bylaw updates that it isn't just at City Hall.
I guess my point is that, I mean, it is sort of the standard way of doing business in most places. And, you know, I would think eventually we'll catch up, that we're not going to penalize people for this. But right now we are, and other businesses are not. It's just part of the scene.
Councilor Graham.
Yeah, thank you. I think maybe just a bit around what Councillor Blissett was saying is I know the government has changed the rules, so businesses can then charge the fee if they so choose to, because of the high credit card fees that the companies are doing. So we are seeing that a bit more, where pay debit's fine. If you want to use a credit card, you're paying 3%. So I think we're seeing more of that as well.
Oh, very good point. Charlotte, yep.
Councillor Blissett and Councillor Graham, through Mayor Price, we of course also allow online payments. There are plenty of payment options available to our clients. And also, when businesses charge for or don't charge, whether they do or don't, a business is for profit, and we are not. So the people who choose to come in and pay with their credit card for the sake of their rewards on their credit cards, those rewards are paid for by people who pay cash. If everybody would pay with a credit card, then sure, but not everyone does. We still get quite a lot of folks coming in and either paying by cash or doing the online payment. And usually the people who come in with credit card are folks who have a rewards option on their credit card.
Further discussion, council? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council gives second reading to City of Cranbrook fees and charges bylaw number 4216, 2025? Mover, please, Councillor Popoff. Councillor Ray, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council give third reading to City of Cranbrook fees and charges bylaw number 4216, 2025? Mover, Councillor Bassett, Councillor Peabody. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next up is a report from Engineering Development Services Department regarding the proposed development at 114 17A Avenue South. And we have some engineering and planning folks that are going to give us a bit of a review of this report.
Sure. So thank you, Mayor and Council. This report basically is just requesting that Council reschedule the public hearing that was originally scheduled for tonight onto the November 24th. And this was largely as a result of just operational changes in our local publishers with respect to when our ads need to be into them for them to be published in the newspaper, which then we're required by law to meet certain timelines. So because there was a bit of a change, the notification process wasn't able to be legally met, even though we do have our notice bylaw. So we're just asking to reschedule the public hearing. And then just I will note that under the policy implication section, it is of course noted to staff, this is an ongoing concern. And we will be looking at hopefully probably in the new year or if a little bit before, depending upon timelines and workloads, but we will look at trying to bring back a bylaw amendment to our public notice bylaw to allow us to include the digital version of the local newspaper to count as the requirement for to meet the definition of newspaper, because with the digital, the timelines are much less stringent from a printing perspective. So then that would allow us to satisfy the Local Government Act. We just need to make that change now, and it has been accommodated for under legislation. We just have to do it now. So.
Thanks, Rob. Can I get a motion that council submit official community plan, Our Path to Cranbrook 2042 amendment bylaw number 4218, 2025, and zoning amendment bylaw number 4219, 2025, to a public hearing to be scheduled for 6 p.m. on November 24th, 2025. Move, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Ray. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, guys. Final bylaw for consideration tonight from Engineering Development Service Department regarding amendment to the streets, traffic, and parking bylaw. I'll ask staff to speak to this if they could, please. Connor?
Sure. Good evening, Council, Mayor. So this is subsequent to the fees and charges bylaw that we just heard from Charlotte. So it's an update with the removal of Schedule C and to add a new Schedule D and Schedule E to the streets, traffic, and parking bylaw, along with a number of text amendments that coincide with the addition of the new fee schedule. So specifically, the amendment will add the parking meter and permit fees, as well as new leasing fees into the streets, traffic, parking bylaw, and provide for new parking meter and lease rate fees in accordance with the recommendations from the Cranbrook Downtown Parking Plan and Strategy that was done back in April of this year. The new Schedule D includes the current rates and proposed future increases to the meter rates and leased parking stall rates, and those future rates wouldn't take effect until May 1st, 2026. So the current fees would still be in existence until April 30th, and then May 1st, the implementation would roll out. So the recommended rates keep the city's parking rates competitive, as they're well below the national standard of $2 per hour, while significantly increasing to our contributions in the Downtown Parking Reserve Fund. It's anticipated that the income generated and directed to the parking reserve would reduce the amount of taxpayer subsidization that would be required to go towards capital improvements and maintenance of parking infrastructure in the downtown, and that the service will move closer to being self-funded. So additional future improvements and modifications to the downtown parking will be considered as a part of the 2026 budget process as well. These proposed increases will be relatively easy to implement and will still be effective through any future potential changes. So very briefly, that's some highlights, key highlights from the report.
Thanks very much, Connor. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to Streets, Traffic and Parking Amendment Bylaw number 4222, 2025? Mover, please. Councilor Ray, Councilor Popoff. Discussion. Councilor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Connor, just curious, do we have to update the heads of all the parking meters, or did the current ones, do they accept toonies?
So currently, they do accept toonies for some of them, and some of them don't. They just accept up to loonies. So around Rotary Park area, those accept up, but you can still go up to $2, 120 minutes for the other parking meters. But the implementation generally we'll see changes to all the parking meters, and there's about 400 of those, so it could take some time.
And this is a relatively easy adjustment to go from a 1 hour maximum to a 2 hour maximum?
Yes, so relatively easy. It will take time. So implementation would take place in May, and that's part of the reason we're doing it in May, is so that Kirk isn't out in the cold trying to adjust these. He has to go with a digital, essentially like an OBD for your vehicle that you plug in, and he's programming these meters one at a time.
Okay.
Because we don't have, ours are credit card compatible, but we don't actually have the technology in it. So he does manually have to go and plug this into each meter. So we're expecting it to take about 4 weeks to go through each meter.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Further, council? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council gives second reading to Streets, Traffic and Parking Amendment Bylaw number 4222, 2025? Mover, please. Councilor Stats, Councilor Bassett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And can I get a motion that council give third reading to Streets, Traffic and Parking Amendment Bylaw number 4222, 2025? Mover, please. Councilor Graham, Councilor Popoff. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks so much. Moving into new business. First item of new business tonight is a report from our Engineering Development Services Department regarding decommissioning of the Mayor's Task Force for Housing. I'll ask staff to review this report. We have Rob here, I guess. Rob?
Sure. Again, thank you, Mayor and Council. So this report is and recommendation is just brought to you on the heels of the report decommissioning the Task Force for Homelessness that was just recently done. Just as a quick little fresh reminder, in October of 2023, the Mayor's Task Force was struck. We put a task force together with the goal of creating a housing strategy for the city of Cranbrook, saying that was a clear path based on the needs assessments. That work was done successfully. We have a housing strategy that was accepted by council in July of 2024. And subsequent to that, the city, with some remaining budget, undertook some additional work to take one of the top recommendations to create a template for the creation of a housing entity at some point, should somebody wish to take that on. And additionally, I just want to note that the work that the Mayor's Task Force did, we were so proud of it that we ended up we submitted for an award to the Planning Institute of BC for consideration. We weren't successful, but just the fact that we were able to put Cranbrook on the map and our consultants felt strongly enough that that was something that we wanted to do was a great opportunity. And basically the task force had kind of reached its end point without being able to go much further. So we're recommending that the task force be basically closed down, and then the city will continue to seek funding, granting opportunities, looking forward to try and continue to move housing forward at the city of Cranbrook, and looking for those opportunities if they can come. So that's where we're at for now.
Thank you, Rob. Can I get a motion that council approve the formal decommissioning of the mayor's task force for housing effective November 3rd, 2025, recognizing the successful completion of the City of Cranbrook housing strategy accepted by council in July 2024. Mover, please, Councillor Bassett. Councillor Ray. Discussion. Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, thank you. In the report, it says, implement the strategy through an operational structure to move the city's housing initiatives forward. What does that look like? What does that mean?
Sure. Through the mayor to Councillor Stetsky. So in the housing strategy, there are a number of recommendations that were made that the city can take a direct role in. So that's sort of where we're talking about sort of an operational perspective, policy changes, policy implementation, looking at project opportunities, partnerships. That's sort of where we get into the operational level. And ultimately, I think one of the goals of the strategy was to have a role dedicated to moving housing forward in the city of Cranbrook. It's a big job. So that comes with the need for funding, of course, is one of the key opportunities, as well as other commitments by the city, which would need to be discussed at a council level. In looking at the housing entity framework that was created, successful entities require not only resources, human resources, require financial resources and land resources to see projects move forward. So until all those pieces come together, we can still work on all the other recommendations that would be within the jurisdiction of the city, looking for those opportunities.
Yes. So will this be driven by planning?
I think driven by the city as a whole. I mean, we would certainly play a large role when it comes to anything related to land use planning. But as been seen of recent months, we're starting to look at partnerships with organizations looking for housing solutions and different opportunities via whether we look at looking at land or any kind of other contributions. So we do certainly play a big role in it. A lot of policy related to housing comes from our realm, certainly through bylaws and implementation, as was seen through all the Bill 44 changes that came by, from the provincial government. So yes, a lot of it does land on our lap. But in order to delve forward, it's really difficult to do it off the side of our desk. I mean, ultimately, we would like, to see if this council or future councils want to move in a much more aggressive form. There will be bigger commitments, but I think a big part of it will be through our departments and other maybe council. I mean, mayor and council looking for opportunities, partnerships, those kinds of things. So I think it's just a citywide initiative as we move forward, but certainly our department will play a significant role, I think.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate the work of the task force, and it's important that I think we don't want this report to get dusty. We want to make sure it's a living document that we're really integrating into our work going forward. When we look at see in the local media, I think there's a housing corporation in Creston. Looks like Invermere went down the housing corporation road. I think Radium has done some pretty interesting stuff. So I just want to, I don't want us to lose out on an opportunity. So I just want to make sure that, this stays top of mind for us and that we are definitely looking for those opportunities. I know there had been discussion about a potential contractor to move that ball forward. So whatever those next steps are, I think those are really important. And just as an aside, I think another part of the housing spectrum that we don't have in Cranbrook is cooperative housing. And so that's another potential resource that I think we just need to make sure this stays top of mind. I don't want us to get behind and to lose out.
Thank you. CEO Pritchard has a comment, and then we'll go back to Rob.
Excuse me. So Councillor Ray and certainly Councillor Stetsky as well. Just further to that, we are very aware of one of the recommendations, including is around the housing entity. The staff right now, out of the report, purpose-built rental housing was one of the main goals, and in all forms. You mentioned some on the lower end of the housing continuum, but we're seeing a lot of success in the development world pushing purpose-built development, which is fully tasking our staff with managing those projects. In addition to that, the other work we took on that was over and above with the BC Builds targeting worker housing, and then others coming forward like the Habitat for Humanity. So we are actually doing quite well in that front right now. So it's certainly not, nothing is sitting there. We are moving on all fronts in the housing continuum that were in the report. But going forward in the future, there may be a time where either through granting or coming back to council, we'll be looking for support in a housing entity, general manager, or whatever else structure we want to talk about. But for now, we are certainly getting a lot of units built in town.
Further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And Rob, a huge thank you to certainly our folks in our planning and engineering department. You know, a lot of these bigger things that we do take on, they take a lot of time. And unfortunately, sometimes you guys are almost working off the corner of your desk, and I don't know how you get the work done, but you know what? You're always bringing something constructive to the table. Had you not been involved in this initiative, I can guarantee it wouldn't have moved forward whatsoever. As well, thanks to all the participants, organizations that were part of the task force. I can assure you that just sitting in that meetings, there was a lot of energy. Everybody was fully committed going forward, and boy, they worked together just so well as a team. And you know what, Rob, I mean, you were driving a lot of that at the start, bringing the people together. So thank you. But again, thank the people so much. You know, and just a few of the things I think sometimes we forget, you know, we're in the middle of a lot of provincial government legislative change to building and everything at the same time. You guys were on overload. And, you know, if you look at what has the city done, just, you know, a couple of things like, you know, some of our policy and bylaw that was changed since then, you know, from incentivizing and things like that, like, you know, and those are new things. It took a lot of time. So, you know, thank you again so much. I really appreciate it. The next report is also from Engineering Development Services Department regarding the F.W. Green Memorial Home oversizing. I'll ask staff to speak to this report. We got Mike up there.
Thank you, Mayor and
Thanks,
Council.
guys.
So as everybody's probably aware, the province through Interior Health Authority and the East Kootenay Regional Hospital District are replacing the F.W. Green Home with the new 150 unit long care bed facility. As a part of the development to replace the facility, especially a project of this size and nature, there's off-site works that do need to be done. Some of the off-site works were related to the parking variance that went in front of council, and then the other off-site works are often related to servicing the property itself. It's a much larger property, much greater demands, so there does need to be some improvements done. When off-site works are done for a development of this size and nature, what the city often does is look at the plans and consider, especially in the area where they're directly doing the work and digging up the road, they're going to upgrade the pipes to service the facility. Do we need to upsize those pipes to service other growth in the area? Are they undersized? That's something we look at. We also look at, you know, if they're doing a bunch of paving work in the frontage of the property, as the other side of the road in deteriorating condition. We can't require them to go beyond the center line, but are we going to leave a bunch of, you know, failing pavement just on the other half of the road, or are we going to undertake some of these improvements? So we look at it from a prioritization of a condition and a capacity perspective. So when we looked at this particular site, we did see that we recommended as a part of the work that we would see both some of the infrastructure oversized to accommodate some of the growth that has happened in there from a capacity perspective, and then also some improvements. Most of the work would be improvement in road works, curb and road replacement on 3rd Street South between 16th Avenue South and the lane west of 18th Avenue South, and then replacing catch basin at the corner of 3rd Street South and 16th Avenue, and then some additional resurfacing works in that area. These are items that we look at through our asset management plan and framework to say while there's contractors and resources being mobilized into the area, we can get good prices. The neighborhood can see the improvement, so people aren't thinking that it was unfortunate that the pavement stopped at the property line or the boundaries of what we could only require them to do. So that's those two items we're recommending that the funds do come from the 2027 capital capital program through road funding and water funding. Waterworks is estimated at $188,585.61. And the roadworks are estimated at $866,529.60. The timing would be in the 2027 budget year, as our current bylaws and policies only allow us to pay for it the year after the work is done, and these offsite works are scheduled to be completed in 2026.
Thank you very much, Mike. Can I get a motion? Council authorize the commitment of $1,055,115.21 plus GST from the 2027 Capital Roads and Water Programs to fund the offsite roads and water oversizing related to the Dr. F.W. Green Memorial Home Development Project. Over, please. Councillor Popoff, Councillor Ray. Discussion. Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. So Mike, is this an additional ask for the 2026 budget? Or is this just putting funds towards this project as opposed to using it for something else?
This is not an additional ask. It's staff recommending that we allocate from the planned 2027 budget, that these funds would come out of that budget. The work would happen in 2026, but we would pay for the funds. So in the 2027 budget year, these funds would already be spoken for, and we would pay the developer back at that time for the works that were done in 2026.
Okay. And in your mind, or I guess in your opinion, this project is a higher priority than other projects that are that are on the table over the next year or two?
Councillor Peabody, through the mayor, we certainly don't look at these as nice to have from that perspective. We'd look at them very critically. We did similar work on Innes Avenue related to some of the sidewalk work that was requested, so we didn't have sidewalk and on either side of that development, and we continued it to the school or towards Wattsville Road on one side. We did upsizing of the storm infrastructure at the time, knowing that we had some critical capacity issues of our own. So that's what we do look at this. If we don't see that these would otherwise be projects that we would want to undertake within the next few years of our capital funds, then we probably wouldn't do this at that point in time. When it comes to the water oversizing, the lifespan of the infrastructure that they're placing in there for servicing the development is 60 to 80 years. The road surface itself is 20 to 30 years. We definitely look at the timing of doing this for the water. We're just increasing the pipe size. So we're not paying for the cost of replacing the road surface afterwards. So it's a really good bang for our buck when it comes to use of taxpayer dollars to take advantage of it this time. And yes, we do critically look at it from that perspective to make sure that if it's not going to take away from other projects that would also be seen as a similar high priority.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Graham.
My question was answered in that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bissett.
Thank you. So I'm confused about, could we not use DCCs? Aren't they for off-site improvements, or am I mixing apples and oranges?
Councillor Bissett, through the mayor, that is a good question. Now, if some of these, if the oversizing works were identified as being growth driven and we were able to collect funds for them, then we would have looked at that. But in these situations, it's more of a local item. So if we were to, at some point in time, replace this water main in the relatively near future, which is reaching the end of its lifespan, we would have to fund for the oversizing of it ourselves just to meet the capacity demands that are happening throughout the city. Okay. But otherwise, yes, we would like to make sure that we're capturing those through this policy. We often are able to collect latecomer fees from developers, so we're able to make sure that development does pay for oversizing at times. But as the report indicates, all of the land around here has, for the most part, been developed, so it's very unlikely that we would be able to collect any funds because everything is developed. But in a similar situation, if the adjacent properties were undeveloped, then we would probably be looking at bringing a bylaw policy that would allow us to collect fees from development, similar to DCCs, but more retroactively.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Peabody?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one more question. How, like percentage wise, and just rough guesstimate, how much more is it to increase capacity compared to just replacing what's already there?
It's a good question, Councillor Peabody through the mayor. It depends on what the nature or the magnitude of that increase in capacity. When we're looking at trenching and installing a water or sewer main, a large amount of the work is in the labor being done and then the backfill and the road restoration. So if it's an instance where we're here for the water main, for example, it's going from a 200 millimeter diameter pipe, so an 8-inch diameter pipe to a 10-inch diameter pipe. We are paying for the material difference between those two. So it is fairly, it's a small proportion of the costs of doing that work compared to all the backfill, all the labor, all the materials, and then the resurfacing that goes into it at that point in time.
Okay.
I don't have a dollar figure for you.
But that's sort of what goes into the increased expense.
Yes, it is
Yeah.
for the materials. So it is a relatively small percentage of the actual works compared to the overall installation of it.
Okay, thank you.
Further, Councillor Graham?
Thank you. So I'm just trying to get this in my head and just help me out here, Mike. So if we're oversizing, but unless we're tearing down houses and putting something else in, the oversizing isn't necessarily necessary. But are we just oversizing? Like, is this just like a continuum? Like the pipe we're tying into is already oversized, or is this just going to be a chunk of just oversized back down to 200 mil on each side?
Councillor Graham through Mayor, great question. So it will just be oversized in front of this property, but the majority of the pipes in this area are undersized. We've done a lot of the flow modeling in the city, and what we are finding is that a lot of the pipes, and they were installed maybe to the standards of the time. When we're looking at the standards that we would need right now for fire flow, and then we've also modeled a lot of the infill intensification that can happen on existing properties. So that's one of those layers when we're talking about provincial legislation. We've talked to council about some of the challenges of how do we plan for and proactively accommodate the ability for additional or accessory dwelling units to happen in some of these areas. We do need to plan for that a little bit as well. So when the city does upgrade the infrastructure that connects to this, that will eventually make those connections to those larger pipes. And this is an age of town where we are seeing some failures. We've done some water upgrades in the last 5 or 10 years in proximity to this site, and we had to increase pipe sizes there. So it's not going to be standing there forever as just a larger pipe in the ground. It will eventually connect to some other recent improvements that does extend over to 2nd Street South. So the overall network in the area is improved with capacity, with fire flow.
Anything further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks very much, Mike. A lot of work on that one. That's a really big project, and thanks for the negotiating. You did a great job negotiating this with the contractor in the province. Next up is a report from our finance department regarding air carrier operating agreement with Pacific Coast Airlines. We have Charlotte on hand for that.
Thank you, Mayor. So this report is a little bit after the fact. This report is seeking council's approval to enter into an air carrier operating agreement with Pacific Coastal Airlines for a 5-year term commencing October 26, 2025 and expiring October 25th, 2030. With 3 options to renew for 5 years each. So this is the air carrier operating agreement required for the new Pacific Coastal service that began last week.
Thank you, Charlotte. Can I get a motion that council approve entering into a air carrier operating agreement with Pacific Coast Airlines Limited for a 5-year term commencing October 26, 2025 and expiring October 25th, 2030 with 3 options to renew for 5 years each, and further that the CAO and the mayor be authorized to sign the required documents on behalf of the city. Mover, Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Ray. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Final report tonight is from our Public Works Department regarding solid waste and recycling program. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Mayor. Evening, Council. The purpose of this report is to obtain a council resolution regarding the city's curbside garbage and recycling collection services. We are recommending that council direct staff to maintain the existing weekly curbside garbage collection and the biweekly curbside recycling collection, and that council direct staff to proceed with an RFP for the third-party recycling collection. This recommendation is to maintain the status quo comes from further review of our solid waste program. The main rationale being that the public survey that we conducted in spring reported a high residential satisfaction rate for our current services. That's 89% satisfaction for garbage collection and 78% satisfaction for recycling collection. Changing to biweekly garbage would be challenging since we cannot offer a third bin size, as our garbage trucks are only equipped for 2 bin sizes. We also spoke with our operations staff, and they estimate that 10 to 15% of residents are currently at their full capacity with the current 2 bin sizes that we offer, which would further complicate biweekly garbage. Staff's also recommending that we defer consideration for organics collection and that biweekly garbage collection, the main rationale being that this aligns with our major capital purchases that are budgeted for 2030. That's the end of life for our mechanized garbage trucks and that scheduled asset replacement. This also allows time for staff to explore new technologies, such as dual body trucks that would allow us to pick up 2 streams of solid waste services, or countertop food cyclers for composting like was implemented in the city of Nelson. To ensure successful transition to biweekly garbage or introduction of organics collection, staff's recommending more time to research and validate the programs, proof of concept, and future pilot projects, and additional public engagement and education before we consider any solid waste program changes. Regarding budget and policy impacts, that would only be subject to the new recycling contract, which is expiring in April of next year. We spoke with our current service provider. We estimate those costs to increase anywhere between 2 to 5%, and that may result in the need for a small household fee and a bylaw update. But again, that's subject to the final recycling contract with that third party. Thank you, and open the floor to questions.
Can I get a motion that council direct staff to maintain the existing weekly curbside garbage collection in-house and biweekly curbside recycling collection third-party contractor, and that council direct staff to proceed with an RFP for third-party recycling collection? A mover, please. Councillor Graham, Councillor Popov. Discussion. Councillor Peabody, Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. A few weeks ago, we had a presentation about introducing organics collection. And one of the questions I had was, what would it take to go to biweekly garbage collection and then do organic collection with the extra staff? Was that looked into since that last meeting?
Thank you, Councillor Peabody, through the mayor. That was looked into. Adjusting garbage collection to biweekly in tandem with introducing organics collection is a best practice of what we've seen elsewhere in other cities. So that is certainly a viable path for future grant opportunities that would allow for the capital spending for a vehicle and staff and things like that for the organics part of it.
Okay. And personally, I'm a little disappointed to see this being pushed back. Like I was looking back through my emails and the first time, no, well, maybe not just me talking about this with staff, but I remember back in 2019, Mike Matika, Curtis Mummery, and I sat down. We started talking about this because there was some funding available from the RDEK, I believe, at the time. So it's like, this is something that's already been worked on for 6 years now, and we're looking at pushing it back another 4 or 5. And it's just, I know it's a big undertaking, but personally, I'd like to see staff continue to work on this and continue to at least try and find funding or a way to make it viable for taxpayers to introduce organic collection. And if we can see it done before 2030, that would be ideal for me.
Thank you, Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, I share Councillor Peabody's concerns, and I'm willing to support this, but I would like to see a commitment from staff through our CAO to bring forward a proposal to move to organics before the term of this council finishes a year from now, so that we can vote on it and make some progress.
Thank you, Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the additional detail that's contained in this report. The note that although the survey included the option for a third larger bin, we then learned that was not practical. So I think that's important to note and good information for the community. And I also really appreciate the frontline information from staff that 10 to 15% of our residents have a full garbage bin, and I presume that's with the larger bin size that we have. So when we move forward, I want us to be able to move forward in a way that includes everybody. I would not feel right about having 10 to 15% of our residents saying, well, now I have garbage that's not being collected because I have too much, right? So I think what I appreciate about what's come forward this evening is I think we need some additional time to strategize about the education we want to see in our community and how we might approach that in terms of increasing awareness around composting strategies, et cetera. So I'm wondering if if you have any comments at this time, and it's okay if you don't, about potential education strategies. There's some people who may have room in their home to compost in their backyard. There's other people who maybe don't want to do that, but might be interested in a countertop composter. I see that the District of Sparwood is considering countertop composting because it avoids the bear risk for their community. So for myself, I'm comfortable with what's come forward tonight, as long as we are on a very clear and active path around education and exploring other opportunities. So I wonder if you could maybe just comment on any thoughts you have about that, engaging the community and that community education, because we really need to build, I think, that community readiness.
Thank you, Councilor Ray, through the mayor. Yes, staff has definitely been having conversation, brainstorming the educational component, outreach. And I think that the survey results even show the need for that. There was some mixed results on the buy-in for organics, but then when we looked at, I think there was a question about biweekly garbage, but with organics, and there's kind of some confusion with that. And so I think that there's definitely some educational opportunity on best practices, what other communities are doing. A few ideas just off the top of my head are, staff keeping an eye out for future grant opportunities that would allow us to implement small scale pilot projects. The countertop composting units are a fantastic idea, and that would be a great model for such pilot project. I'm sure there's many more as well, but that's what comes to mind right now. Thank you.
Councillor Stead?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very disappointed in this, and I won't be supporting it. Kimberly, Fernie, Invermere are already doing this. They're going ahead with organics. We had 64% of the people surveyed supporting bi-weekly collection. And yeah, like it's easy to say, yes, I am happy with the existing service. Sure. But I could also go ahead to bi-weekly. So saying you're happy with the existing service doesn't preclude bi-weekly. When it came to the data on organics, 51% in support, but 24% were undecided. So that means they didn't know because we haven't done it yet. So they can't say, yes, I'm 100% because I haven't done it. And so to me, that's a high level of support. We don't need to do a pilot project. We've got pilot projects all around us. And so I think we are the largest producer of garbage in the regional district of the East Kootenay. And it makes a difference what we do. And part of the motivation for this is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That is also part of our mandate. I know it doesn't come up a lot, but it is part of our mandate. And we can do that with this project, and we're choosing not to. We can, and help the regional district extend the life of the landfill, which is part of why they're doing it. So I'm going to vote against this. I don't think it is very forward-looking for us. Many jurisdictions are doing this all across the country, and I think we can move ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Graham, and then Councillor Pablo.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to see this come forward, and I definitely will be supporting this. What we've seen and been talking about for the last while really has driven down for me is that there's no cost savings. There's no cost savings moving to organics at this point. We're not saving money to landfill. And if I can't provide cost savings, then I'm not in support of a program just for the sake of doing it. So I think that there's opportunities for people if they want to do organics, so they can get a third party to pick up their organics. But right now, I am quite happy with what we're doing, and there isn't an overwhelming majority that are jumping up and down for this. I think there needs to be cost savings shown, and I think that's how you get buy-in. But at this point, there isn't that carrot there.
Thank you, Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you. I recall a little while ago, the food security folks were looking at putting in a community composting operation system, I think down by the community gardens by the Save-On. Grant funding or something else may not have made it successful, but maybe that's something we want to, as we do our education, as Councillor Ray's talking about, we may want to connect with them and see if what they need to do to get over the hurdles and set up a local composting operation. And then people have the choice. They can, on their way wherever, they can drop off their composting at year round, and that might be the win-win instead of what we're talking about with the city having to do the curbside. And also, I'd refer to page 14 which is one of the survey results, where choose which statement best represents your opinion related to cost for curbside. I do not want curbside organics collection, 44%. I want food waste collection, but I do not want any tax increase. So if you add those two together, 73% of the responses were not in favor of composting, and they didn't want to pay taxes for it. So for those reasons and others, I support this motion.
Thank you. Certainly from my perspective, again, you're going to add an additional service. It's going to be a cost to it. We saw where we were last year, trying to get down to a specific number. It's going to be that hard or worse than that this year, getting down to reasonable numbers. So I truly don't believe it's in the stars this year. In the immediate future, until we can get our tax rate under control a little bit better, Maybe when the new trucks, we do get the new trucks, with technology and everything else, it may be a better time. I appreciate the frustrations, but, and I know the comparisons we often do. This community is doing it, this community. And we are the largest, and I think we've got to take that into consideration. So what's our cost of doing it compared to their cost? They probably have almost the same amount of as people out there in the field with a half or a third of the population. So they do have the time. I think our staff was very clear when they went and on a time requirement. They don't have an additional hour. They don't have an additional hour for another program. If we were going to expand our service, we'd probably consider garbage collection and what do you call recycling for stratas and whatnot. They're paying, they're paying the taxes, but we can't afford that. We can't afford the extra staff. We can't afford the extra resources required to it. So I get it. So I don't put a lot of merit sometimes in those comparisons to these smaller communities around us. And again, it's something we will get to, absolutely. But, I'm where Councillor Graham is. If there's a cost to it, I personally don't feel we can afford that at this point in time. Further, Councillor Statsky.
Yeah, so if we aren't committing to moving organics forward in the next year, then I will be voting against this motion.
Thank you. Further? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. 3 are opposed. Councillor Statsky is opposed. Councillor Peabody is opposed. And Councillor Blissette's opposed. See Virtual.
Maybe just in regards to some of the last bits of the conversation, if the city of Cranbrook was in a little different place, we just automated the garbage collection a few years back, so that if we hadn't done that step and we were looking at biweekly collection with, sizing the trucks appropriately and composting today, and we had the grant money in front of us, it'd be a different conversation. But because we've just purchased those vehicles and they only allow the 2 smaller size of bins for garbage, as went around the table, we were looking at a reduction in service in the garbage collection plus an additional expense. So the timing for Cranbrook isn't as optimal as it could be. And I just wanted to not lose that. Like, Cranbrook did some good things moving to automation, and we will do some good things towards composting, but the stars have to align in terms of the renewal of the vehicles. And we tried to shoehorn it in with the contracting of the recyclables, but it's simply the equipment and the costs. That picture just wasn't as good as it could be to move forward, but that time will come for Cranbrook.
Thank you. Question, I guess, for Cameron or Charlotte. When's our contract up with the contractor for the recycling?
That expires April 30th, 2026.
So it's coming up. So this is imperative that we did get this through now. If we weren't going to go on, and let's be honest, we wouldn't have time before then to put something in place. So thank you very much. Thanks, Cameron. Very much appreciated. We have 3 admin updates tonight. The first one is from our social development coordinator regarding housing and shelters. Marcel, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome, Mayor and Council. Just thought it would be a prudent time to come and give a little update on what the city's happening around the city and coming into the winter weather. As many of you know, the permanent shelter opened recently, and it is going full steam, and it's full every night. We have seen some increased traffic in that area, and I think maybe there's been some concern in the community that is more people coming to the community to access the shelter. But what we're finding is it's just the fact that there's more people living in that area, and also because of the Travelodge close, that area of town now holds most of our resources, and so we just see a lot more individuals moving around in that part of town. With that opening shelter, as we know, the Travelodge closed, and so the Cozy Bear was scheduled to open sometime in the fall, early spring, and they're still doing renovations there. That will have 30 beds. For now, we have 20 people still living in the Travelodge with BC Housing funding that. So we kind of lost a few beds there because we have 40 open at the shelter and 20 open at Cozy Bear, and the Travelodge had 63 before that. So we're at a bit of a net loss on the beds at this point in time. And it will not give us any more beds, any new beds available for people that are still living in temporary shelters. At the same time, we have an extreme weather shelter opening up again this winter. We've successfully had it for 2 years. Anchors will be taking lead this year, which is great. And she's working with they're working with a new church in town, the Dwelling Place, and BC Housing has approved that for 20 beds. That's 8 beds more than we had last year for the winter. But overall, again, we're at a net loss of 10 extreme weather beds because the Travelodge also opened 18 beds for the winter season. And so we've lost those. The other kind of complicating factor this year is that last year by this time we had secured over $15,000 to help us prepare people for the winter season, for those people trying to live outdoors. We don't have that funding secured so far this year. We haven't found anybody that's been offering any cold weather planning funding. And so we're just concerned about that moving forward, that with the closing of the Travelodge, minimal resources on that area of town, no ability to kind of provide that extra support that keeps people safe and alive in their temporary shelters up in the common ground area and on that area of town, that we will see a change in movement, right? People will come downtown, be going over to the 2nd Street area to access the services that are available on a more frequent basis, and that may not travel back up to the common ground after that. So we may see increased numbers in our downtown core through the winter season. One of the strategies that the nonprofits have come together and trying to do with doing some of this planning is we recognize now that we have a concentration of services right out there on 2nd Street. So reaching out to the Dwelling Place, we've been able to open some weekend services there. They have opened their doors on the weekends to allow people for a drop-in center. They will also become the cold weather shelter, and they will also become a warming center in the wintertime. So they will be open sort of 24/7 during the extreme weather. The nonprofits working under the direction of from the city, I'm trying to say that wrong, working under direction for me being a part of those programs, we thought we would try to do the same thing up at Common Ground. And we ended putting a couple trailers up there as a method to provide some services, to have a place for people to go and get warm, maybe get a hot meal once in a while. And unfortunately, we didn't go through the process properly. So right now we're just that had to be retracted. So we really are worried on that end of town of what people will access. We do have a couple of nonprofits over in that area, but their services aren't available in the evenings and they're not available on the weekends. Again, I'm just stressing this point because we want to come together to find solutions for how do we help the vulnerable people who need to access resources, but not overwhelm our downtown businesses, not overwhelm our downtown core with people all coming down here to find services. Another point we kind of wanted to bring up is that recent point in time count was done in April, and we did get our statistics last month, and we did see the increase in those numbers that we had predicted back in, I think, March, when we had put out some media about that. That is actually a really good thing, because what it's kind of demonstrating is that we do know where our people who are living unhoused are. We have a much more robust outreach program. So we were able to really capture the people who are truly experiencing homelessness in our community. The downside is that, of course, that looks like our numbers have grown by that amount. And so we do recognize there's always going to be new faces that are coming into the community, but as some come, we house some move out. And so the number is more reflective of a better capturing of who's experiencing homelessness in the community. So I just need to put my glasses on for a second. But what came out of that count that was really significant to me was the number of people not the decrease in the percentage of people decreasing or saying that they've been homeless for under 6 months. Because when that number lowers, that means our people are being unhoused longer. The other statistic came out of there that was the significant increase in mental health concerns. So we either have people struggling, more people struggling with mental health that are becoming unhoused in our community, or people are unhoused. The longer you're unhoused, the worse your mental health gets, because it was like a 20% jump from the 2023 count. As a community, I think that that's one of those times when we've seen a big signal that, hey, this is something that needs to be addressed. And I do know that the nonprofits and the service providers are coming together to say, okay, this is obviously a growing concern in our community, and trying to plan that. But would like Mayor and Council to have an awareness that that is, was quite a big number in this last count. Just kind of looking at some of the other things that I think that those were the main highlights of what I wanted to kind of portray today. And just knowing that it is kind of going into winter, that we recognize that we have some challenges before us. We know that the nonprofits and service providers are working really hard to address these challenges. Certainly any guidance or direction from the council is also very helpful going into this. And also just to recognize, and there will be a meeting later this month where we highlight more of the positives that have been happening in the community, that even though there are these challenges, there's still lots of really good things going on in Cranbrook, and the nonprofits are working very hard to find their own solutions, and we really see that as a positive shift. They feel heard and supported by Mayor and Council, and that makes them all the more willing to step up and work harder at finding solutions. Thank you.
Thanks for the report, Marcel. When I was first reading your summary, I thought, oh, BC Housing must not realize that we have decreased our capacity for shelter and increased our number of people that require it. But yet there's the report from BC Housing highlighting that, so they do know. So I'm not sure what to do, because I feel that we need their help. They know there's a need. And we used to have, as you pointed out, we used to have shows here. We used to have 73 people that were in the home, people that were unhoused but were being looked after in shelters. Now we're down to 63. Checking my vision. But, we've decreased. I don't want to move backwards on this, but yet I feel that we have. I'm pleased that the dwelling place will offer, supportive housing for people in extreme cold temperatures. So that's a positive, but it's hard to paint a pretty picture here.
Thank you, Councillor Blissett. Back to the Mayor. We have worked really hard, and by we, I mean the city and the nonprofits, and I've worked really hard with BC Housing to build that relationship back, because I think we had some disruption to the relationship for some years. And I do believe BC Housing has our back. They have come sort of to the table quite a few times. They have a lot of things, but they're a big entity. And we have one representative who represents a lot of communities, and I know she's fighting for us, but I do believe, yes, that's what BC Housing had the impression, that Cranbrook is good. We've opened a shelter where Cozy Bear will open. I don't think they've understood that that was just a parallel move for us. It didn't increase our ability to house more people by any number. And now we've actually seen a net loss because Cozy Bear didn't open. So that would have 30 beds instead of they're just still funding 20 beds. I am advocating on a regular basis with BC Housing, saying we are still in crisis here. We need more help. We don't have a no on a project we're working with them right now. It just isn't the yes that we need to have either. So we're still in the holding pattern, but the hope is that with the information they've been given in the last week and a half, that they did take, I know our representative took back to their funding department. I'm hoping that we get a yes, but I don't have that answer yet.
Thank you, Mayor. Marcel, and I didn't see this stat in the report, but maybe it's in there. But are you seeing much success with underhoused individuals finding housing in our community?
No.
No.
And we do see it, you hear it, and it's, if there's housing to be had, they're having access to it, they have regular outreach that connects them to the homeless outreach team. It's just, there is none. Well, I shouldn't say there is none, there's nothing affordable. They don't have the money to even if they're on government assistance, it doesn't cover your basic bottom basement rent. It just doesn't. And so they get, they apply, they go see it, and because of their current living situations, they are bypassed just about every time.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And yeah, because you have a lot of data about, either the relatively constant level of homeless people in our community. I was curious if there's been like a little bit of a flow of kind of people moving in and people moving either out or up, or is it just sort of people become homeless and then that challenge of getting out of that situation is just nearly impossible?
I would say that the situation is nearly impossible. Like I wrote in this report, the idea of going from street to rental housing of any kind is almost a thing of the past.
Yeah.
The need, what is available is so small that there are so many people are wanting everything that comes up for rent. An unhoused person is not the person you're going to pick, first or second. But in saying that, we have homeless outreach teams that do their job very well. And if there's a possibility of getting somebody housed, they are working on it. And we have another one that just recently and moved out again today, found a house. So we are seeing, but I would say it's about 10% of people.
And supplemental, if I may. You mentioned that there's been some complaints around the new shelter, the Step Beyond shelter. Do you know if any of those complaints are from Mount Baker School or the nearby daycare?
We do have a working group, a shelter table that meets every Tuesday to respond to any complaint that comes up from a community, from Baker, from anywhere. And we have had one complaint from Baker, some paraphernalia left on the ground. And we immediately got together, solved that problem. We now have a sweep team that goes in. So around the daycare, they sit at the table too. We really don't have any complaints. The table's actually quite surprised at the minimal complaints that have come in to the table, and that they're fairly minor. Somebody, looking in a window, or somebody crossing the road, jaywalking, things like that, and nothing huge.
And you're responding to the complaints of the public as well?
If they come through any channel, yeah.
Okay, good, thank you.
But that would be good for the community to know that they can reach out to me here, or to anybody if they have a complaint that they would like to bring forward to the table.
Yeah, so I guess just following up on that, what is the best way to contact you? Or I guess if there is a complaint, what are the proper channels to go through?
Well, probably the best one is to go on to the city website, because on the website we have who to call when sheet that's listed on that website. So if it's something to do with a shelter, it'll explain in when should you call bylaw, when should you call RCMP, or when should you call the city.
Great.
So,
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So we have a responsibility to care about every citizen that lives in Cranbrook, and we do. Pardon for my voice. When it comes to homelessness, our responsibility as a city is to identify the issues affecting our citizens, and then to work as closely and as hard as we can with BC Housing, who are responsible for fixing the issues. I know we're doing that, but I would encourage you to continue to push as hard as you can, because this is a BC Housing issue. They need to fix it.
Councillor Stetsky, through the mayor, and I think that we recognize that now might be a good time for another letter from mayor and council to go back to BC Housing, just reiterating the fact that we have not come ahead. We're not ahead in the housing situation.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks very much for this report, Marcel. One of the challenges you identified is a $15,000 gap regarding cold weather planning, in addition to the absence of a propane program that was available last year. I certainly support the continued conversations and advocacy with BC Housing around the necessary resources for our community, including for cold weather. However, I'm also a practical person, and sometimes those conversations can take a while. So in the interim, in terms of practical solutions, I know our nonprofit, all of our nonprofits in the community are very knowledgeable and well connected. Are folks having conversations about alternative funding sources to make up that $15,000 plus gap to provide some those additional supports around extreme weather? So I'm thinking service clubs, RDEK district grant and aid. Have we had a conversation with the Columbia Basin Trust? I understand some of our thrift stores offer free shopping for folks in need. So are those kinds of conversations in the interim happening with our nonprofit partners to strategize?
Councillor Ray, through to the mayor, thank you. Absolutely. Actually, we had a meeting today that some positive things came out because we have a new agency coming to the table with some possible solutions. They're already, all the agencies are discussing who can do what, who has a little bit to put into the pot that might make the pot big enough that they can address some of these needs. But when you look at the long-term picture of where we are today from where we've been just before COVID, our nonprofits have been going full out for a lot of years. There hasn't been a break in it. We've also reached out to a lot of our faith-based groups. They're the same thing. Their congregations are hurting and they're hurting financially and stuff. So we are really cognizant. This is just a tough time all the way around, but those conversations will continue to happen. And we have seen a huge shift in the awareness of all of our service providers of who's doing what, how to work together, and those definitely seeing a big growth in those conversations.
Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you. First off, Marcel, a very insightful report. Thank you very much. And I do want to make the disclaimer that when you always use the words "we," I told you I was going to say this, that you're representing the nonprofits, the government provincial government agencies. It's not the city that's doing the "we." You're just one of the representatives around the table. So with that disclaimer, I agree. I think we need to petition the regional district for the 15,000. When we have done, there was some surveys back a little while ago, where are all these vulnerable people from? And a significant proportion were not Cranbrook community residents. They were coming from outside the region, obviously because of the services that are provided here. So, they should come to the table with some finances on an ongoing basis. And I hope your staff or council are working with that. And lastly, we need to continue to lobby BC Housing. I agree, a letter from mayor and council, but I think even a phone call, your worship, Mr. Mayor, to BC Housing and get them going at the high level that this is important and not just a letter, but we're serious about this in some other ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thank you. I think just a few comments that you won't have the answer for, but it's just food for thought, is when BC Housing first came wanting to do this emergency shelter 6 years ago, the first things that I had said is you're not building it big enough. And they assured myself and everybody around the table multiple times that this shelter will meet the needs of Cranbrook. And clearly it's not. I'm not shocked, but they made promises. They made promises that everybody who was in the travel lodge would be moved to housing. And the shelter would be exactly that, a temporary emergency shelter. And we aren't seeing that, and they have failed to deliver that. Their option is, here's a tent. So I think BC Housing has a lot of work to do for us in our community to meet the needs of the people that are now unhoused because of the reduction in beds, and also the fact that when they planned this shelter early on, they could have made it bigger or looked at a site that could have potentially worked better for them, and they chose not to. The other thing I find a bit bizarre is that up until BC Housing bought the Cozy Bear, I could have rented a room there. It was totally fine for occupancy. It's been closed almost 2 years now, and there's yet to be, there's a bit of movement in there. It took them a year to get an RFP together. So I think, again, is a disservice to the people and to the taxpayer. How much money are we spending? Did they spend, and have we wasted, collective we, on that? We're not seeing any action there. And if it's like in the other projects we see them do around town, it'll be well behind time and way over budget. So like, these are things that just raise little red flags. It's like, what is happening here? And one thing, I'm not sure if you can direct me how to get the numbers, but I would like to know how many net new beds BC Housing has actually put into Cranbrook, like with some of the new apartment blocks or whatever they put in, like the McCoy Center, which isn't even necessarily BC Housing, but like we haven't, with what we've lost in fire and what they've closed down, in my head, and I'd like to get more data on it, we haven't moved anywhere in the last 10 years. I don't think we're net one new door for affordable housing that the province has been providing. I don't think we're ahead at all. And we have more of a need now than ever. So like, I think there's definitely things that we need to work with and lobby BC Housing on to fix this, because common ground isn't the solution. The tent and some trailers for a medical outreach is not the solution, and it doesn't work in cold climate, and we have a risk of seeing people getting harmed or killed this winter because of cold. And somehow we around the table wear that, and we're doing what we can with the limited resources we have, and even then we're spending more than we probably should be. But there has to be a bit of a balance there, and I feel we're not seeing the same from BC Housing. They're celebrating a shelter that's too small.
Thank you. Great comments. Yeah, and it seems like BC Housing's sort of the target here tonight, and I do feel sorry for them. I think we've come a long way in the relationship we had, in the last couple of years, but realistically, you see it every day, Marcel. And when we had the homeless task force, every few months we'd go around the table for every agency. How are you doing out there? Is it getting any better? No, actually it's getting worse. And it doesn't matter what municipality you're in. It's getting worse in every municipality. And you're investing more and more, and housing, California, housing first, right? Boy, look at California. I mean, it's a complete disaster. How many billions did they put into housing? And I get it, like they play a role, but everybody wants to sort of take it out on BC Housing. We know they're responsible for housing, but there's a lot of agencies, and you know what? You got to go right up the line, up the chain in government for the accountability here. And unfortunately, BC Housing, they're the ones that are, taking the hit for lack of accountability across the board. You need treatment, and you need treatment facilities, not housing, treatment and facilities for a large number of these people. And you've seen it, Marcel. Even if there's somebody that is coming off the street, and somebody's going to show a rental place, what's the chances of them getting it? Because rental is high demand right now. Okay. We know what happens to some that that maybe haven't got treatment, aren't ready yet. We know that people just won't rent to them. Because of what's going to happen there. So, to me, just the more I sit and watch this, it's just so frustrating. I feel so badly for the people that are in the trenches every day. You've seen it, and you've seen them burning out. You're seeing people in their 30s that are so committed to working with these people. They can't cope anymore, and they're only in their 30s, and they're dealing with these situations, and it's so unfair. Until the two senior levels of government decide to really take this on and take it seriously, because let's be honest, it's going to be more than a problem. It's going to be a social epidemic here pretty quick. you know, where it could tip the scales on you know, on lifestyles and how we live in Canada, because you can say it's their problem. There probably will be our problem before long if something isn't done. And we see it already starting where, you know, it affects the citizens. And, you know, I just see that I haven't read anything where there's been a true assessment, all the problems identified, and some large scale strategies and how they're going to deal with this, because there's 4 or 5 components to this, and they just keep throwing money for quick fix. It's a finger in the dike thing on just about every one of these programs. And you know, again, when we go round and round on this, and I get it, so it's BC Housing's turn tonight, but you know, I think at the end of the day, we just, you know, we got to just do the best we can do here. There's going to be a time when we're going to have to just put it out there. But guess what? There's no more room for anybody else to be coming to Cranbrook, so don't come. You know, we're there right now. Let's be honest. We're there right now. So I don't know, just your thoughts on that, Marcel.
And I think you're correct. And I think that my most recent message to BC Housing is just that we have no capacity to resolve our homelessness in our community, which impacts crime, which impacts safety in the community, all of those things without housing. And I can't imagine being BC Housing right now, because I'm sure they get 1,000 asks a day for 100 things they can do. But I do know that we are not getting ahead on the homelessness issue. We are managing for a community. I think Cranbrook is managing amazingly well, and we do get that reported from many other provincial ministries and stuff into our community, that Cranbrook is known for doing good work here. But without housing, we're just circling the drain. We cannot get out of this. And yet, even with I don't even know if I dare say it, but even with housing, we get open housing, then how do you stop more people from just coming to, you know, like, how do we put a little wrap around our community so we are helping the people that are here and not inviting more in, that we just can't, our resources are stretched too thin already.
Thank you. Councillor Stetsky, move on.
Yeah, and I think we're all, you know, appreciate the work that BC Housing has done in Cranbrook and the initiatives that are underway. They're all really important. But we have a bit of a crisis coming with winter. And there were a couple of suggestions around the table here. One was for a letter from mayor and council to BC Housing, specifying the exact issues that we're looking at and asking for help. And the second one was to request 15,000 from the RDEK. So do we need motions for that to happen, or can we just assume that that's going to happen? And if we need motions, I'll ask somebody with a better voice than mine this evening to put the motions forward.
I think everybody on council feels the same way in agreement with that. So I certainly don't have a problem writing a letter on behalf of council, you know, and again, with their updated information and just to show how far off they are. And so it's important that we at least let them know, you know, and put it back in their court. And then the other RDK, and CO Virtual and Councillor Blissett and I can have a discussion before we go up to the regional district next meeting. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Marcel, thank you so much for everything you do. Next up is from Fire Department. We have Chief Driver here tonight to review the third quarter statistics.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. I bring to you tonight the third quarter report. That's our summer season. Apologize for it being a little bit late this year, but we had a busy council meeting last with public hearing. So during our regularly busy summer season, we were expecting a significant increase in calls, and we ended up in that 3-month period having 633 911 calls for service, which is an 11% increase over the spring, which is regularly experienced in community. And from my perspective, we're fortunate that we didn't have a busier summer fire season. The ratio of fire rescue calls is consistent quarter over quarter, about 30% fire rescue and 70% pre-hospital care. We're kind of stabilized at that, which is pretty standard across the province, with 6 structure fires, 75 outdoor miscellaneous fires, and 188 total fire rescue calls over the course of the summer. Pre-hospital care was 445, and once again, not consecutively, but for the second time this year, overdose calls were not our number one call. We had falls and back injuries over the summer apparently were bad for us. That's a win for Marcel and the group, that the good work that they are doing in community, and certainly on my end as a fire chief and a first responder in the community, is I can see the difference that Marcel and the people and the groups that she's working with has made in community, and its impact on our team is positive as well. I guess the good news story is that we didn't have a busy fire season. The first responders in the community got to enjoy summer just as did the families, and I think we should all be grateful for that. Again, we're bracing for the winter season and the separate and different challenges that brings ahead of us, but happy to have a quieter summer as everyone in the community was too, I'm sure.
Thanks for that, Scott. Councilor Graham?
Yeah, thank you. Are we at full complement right now with your guys, or do we have vacancies or people off on injury? Or are you doing okay right now?
I currently have 2 members that are off on short-term leave or leave of various types, and that's within the budgeted buffer that we've been working on achieving for the last couple of years. So we haven't had to do any additional hires to keep our staffing complement up. We've just been able to maintain at that level. Got close over the summer, but we're good for now. Staff are starting to look like they want to come back. So.
Councilor Ray?
Thank you, Mayor. How are our numbers looking compared to this time last year? And are we still kind of in this plateau period where things have leveled off somewhat?
I don't have those numbers in this report, but I am fortunately just have worked through the budget presentation that we're going to be having in a couple of weeks. And so, yes, we have stabilized basically over the last 3 years. There's slight variations year to year, but it looks like we're hitting kind of a plateau. Yeah, the seasonal change is normal. The annual year over year, it looks like it's kind of steadied itself. There's some growth in there, but it's hard to find.
Further? Nothing. Interesting, Scott. Yeah, I think your overdoses or something were 50, and we were going 72 a month or a quarter for the longest period of time. It was very consistent around 72. Again, you're down to 50. So you know that's a pretty significant decrease, and the numbers have come down that way. And you know what, it really does. I think it emphasizes the interagency, multi-agency cooperation that, you know, is really transpired, you know, with the emergency services, with the social service agencies, and through Marcel again, going back to Marcel, you know, the job that she's done by pulling everybody together. So I think that's really significant. And thanks very much for the job you and your guys are doing.
Appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. If I could add is that I do believe, and I'm thankful for the work that Marcel and the social service groups and that the community is doing to not have increased demand in that area of our service delivery. I do believe that we've done what we can do, and when the supply in the community is very harmful, as it was late last week, we see rises. When the drug supply is dangerous, we see rises in service, and those are necessary needs for us to go out and try and keep people alive. What we have done is we've using the shelter, using the services, using education in the community, is we've stopped the nuisance calls for those types of calls that are a hard increase in demand for services because they require immediate attention and a complete move of our resources to focus on those types of things. And so there's been a lot of really good work done to overdose prevention, education and community, and then some of the good work that the social services groups are doing for the other needs, the drug testing and that kind of stuff has kept us out of the unnecessary calls that we were going to for a period of time. And the 911 calls that weren't overdoses, there were people sleeping, but they were sleeping in very public places, and it was creating a demand for service that was unnecessary. And so some of those things have been resolved in ways that we can do that.
Thanks very much, Scott. Final update tonight is from Public Works Department regarding the cemetery update. Tony's got that one.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. Since Council endorsed the review of the cemetery operations, staff time is being reallocated to improve service levels. This has allowed park staff to prioritize maintenance work, including clearing around the raised sunken headstones, repairing rock work, and addressing major damages. To date, at least half of West Lawn cemeteries has had the headstones cleared around them and sunken markers raised. To support these operational improvements, staff time has increased 42% over 2024, and materials and supply spending has increased almost 50% for 2020, will be increased almost 50% for 2026. Looking ahead, staff are developing an expansion plan for 2030, which will include a tree grove to facilitate the memorial tree program. Once designed or finalized, installation of the grove can begin over the next 1 to 2 years. Additionally, in 2029, staff plan to pave unfinished roadways and walkways and enhance fencing and site aesthetics to further improve the visitor experience. I should also mention that we will be bringing back Schedule C of the bylaw, increasing the fees 20% that was endorsed by council this year. So that's also will be coming up.
Thanks very much, Tony. Council? No, that's great, Tony. I see, 2030, yeah, it's a few years out, but let's be honest, it was 30, probably 60 years that really the older parts of the cemetery have sort of been forgotten. So you know what, the first step in developing the cemetery plan is a great step forward, and then really getting on to implementing the plan, 29 and 30. I think it's just exceptional going forward. So thanks very much. We have two pieces of correspondence tonight. Does anybody wish to make a motion on either one? Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, my compass logged me out. For the Minerals and Mines Conference, I thought it'd be a great idea to be the washroom sponsor, which is one of the options, since we are the ones providing the utilities to the facility for $250.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Popoff. Next discussion. Councillor Graham, Councillor Ray.
Yeah, thank you. I love the idea. I just wish we would have had that in September, as the conference has already started. So I don't think we would get our name on the washroom doors in time.
Fair.
Councillor Ray.
Yeah, I know the sponsorship information was included in the letter, but I wasn't sure if it was actually a sponsorship request. It was just an invitation.
Oh, okay.
But we have traditionally sponsored it in one way. I think historically we've always done around a $500. We've done coffee breaks in the past and things like that. So, so historically we have contributed a little bit. Sure. Yeah. So
Yeah, just in terms of the timeline, though, yeah, we would be past being recognized.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. I will withdraw my motion.
Okay. Councillor Ray.
For the second item, I'm wondering if we could refer that to staff regarding the sponsorship request regarding a tournament. I just think it would be helpful to have some information on our sponsorship levels for past tournaments, and I think those details are beyond what's available tonight. So I'd like to refer 12.2 to staff for a short report at a future meeting.
Okay, I'm going to have a quick peek here. So we had a request for minor hockey, right? For $2,484.09 to cover costs associated with their request for reduction of fees for 10 hours of ice time and fees for the warming room at the Memorial Arena for the 2026 BCU 13 Tier 1 Provincial Championships in March. Somebody want to make that motion?
So I'd
You
like to
can save
move
it till
to,
later.
I'd like to refer to staff to
Okay.
come back with a report,
For
you know,
those-
to look at what have we provided other years to other similar tournaments, those kinds of things, because we just want to be consistent.
Okay, fantastic. Right on. Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. And just another comment on this. You know, I think it's talking about 400 families or 400 teams come into our area. When tournaments are coming into the community, and this is a question for CAO for Joe, are we setting up any marketing materials for the city of Cranbrook? You know, here's a lot of outside families that are coming here that this might be their first time coming to Cranbrook. Is this a great opportunity for, you know, Darren maybe to set up some displays about why this is a great place to live or a great place to invest? Just curious if that's being done.
And Mayor Price through to Councillor Peabody, you know, I can't really speak to what's happening inside Western Financial Place during tournaments and the promotion that's done, but I could certainly, you know, come back with that. There's a lot of, you know, global promotion we do for the city through organizations and also through Cranbrook Tourism. We, you know, our promotion of Cranbrook that council has as part of our structure is pretty targeted on economic development, and we leave a lot of the other promotion through Cranbrook Tourism. Visit Cranbrook. Yeah.
Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As a board member with Visit Cranbrook, I'll bring this to their attention. So good question. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us now to Mayor and Council reports and inquiries. Start with Councillor Stetsky. Nothing. Councillor Peabody. Nothing. Councillor Blissett. Nothing. Wow. Councillor Ray.
Thank you. Just a very quick mention, speaking of downtown and community vibrancy, the amazing Halloween trick-or-treating that the Downtown Business Association organized. I think this year, was an all-time high. I think there were 40 sites where kids could go trick-or-treating. Downtown was the hopping place to be. It was awesome. The RCMP were included as one of the sites. And in addition, for actual Halloween night, the RCMP and the fire department had a contest about, I wasn't sure what, something about how many people wanted to be a firefighter versus a police officer. Anyways, I just think these are great examples of vibrancy in our community. So thank you very much to the Downtown Business Association, all the businesses, including the library who participated. Yeah, just adds so much fun and life to our community.
Thank you for that. Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. A while ago, Mark, our CIO, you shared with us an article on enhanced crime prevention through environmental design. So our downtown core. Maybe this is something we want for some future conversation. What might, if that is of interest to council, what it might look like, who might be some partners we would approach with, what would that look like? But I don't know if we have time today for that, but now or future time.
Actually, Councillor Popoff, through the mayor, that is that's an excellent question on some of the initiatives moving forward as we've restructured internally and we're moving to a stronger community policing model. You will see more activity on that front. So yes, that is one of the initiatives of many that is coming forward through our restructuring. So look for a lot more enhanced community policing.
Good stuff. Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thank you. Since Mr. Matika is here, I always save the zingers for him. What I'm wondering, Mike, is now we have that new active transportation corridor up McPhee, or as some call it, the inside passing lane. What happens is when you're coming from the railroad tracks and it's dark out, the lines don't really guide you around that. Is there a way that we can put some yellow paint on the curb or something? Because like, if you're not really paying attention, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to move over here. I'm going to be on the bike lane. Or is there like stencils? Like you see it a little bit more at night versus during the day, but it still is some confusion there just because of the line movement.
Councillor Graham, through the mayor, that's a tremendous question. That was a subject, our topic was subject of a meeting that I had with my staff this morning. We had planned, and we do have some delineators that were ordered and that are on site and that we were looking to install. We're going to temporarily, we did have a barricade there that seems to be migrating or moving. But there is a permanent solution that we're looking at, is installing something that would also work then during the winter months. So it will be a reflective post, similar to, I think, if you've been to Kimberley, you can see that they have some of those vertical posts and delineators for their active transportation to separate it. So yes, it's something that in hindsight should have been a part of the design right off the bat. We jumped on a solution right away, and we are going to be having something installed hopefully within days to address that. Some additional line painting work would probably happen in the spring with our line painting contract to further improve that and make sure that that adjustment is really clear for the traveling public.
Good. And I have nothing more to report. So with that, could I get a motion to adjourn? Councillor Graham, Councillor Ray, all in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned. Good meeting, guys.